154 and climbing people who have joined us today for a reading celebrating the poetry of Pat Fargnoli. My name is Bob Gill. I'm the VP of Programming for the Worcester County Poetry Association, and we're excited to support this reading that Susan Roney O'Brien has put together. Susan's asked me to just say a few words about the Worcester County Poetry Association, also known as the WCPA, before we get started. The WCPA celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, having been founded in 1971 by Michael True and Fran Quinn. And through those years, it has brought a variety of local, regional, and national, and even international poets to Central Massachusetts for the joy of Central Massachusetts poetry readers. Through its journal, the Worcester Review, it's also brought the poetry of Worcester and Central Massachusetts to the world. And in this interesting time we live in, whoever cursed us with that, may they be forever blessed. Zoom has been a lifeline to us to allow us to continue to present poetry to not only members of the WCPA, but to a wider and wider audience. And with that, I'll turn it over to Susan.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Roney O'Brien, your host for celebrating Patricia Fargnoli. I want to thank the Worcester County Poetry Association for its support of this program. Robert Gill worked closely with Pat, her son Ken, Tim Mayo, and me to not only manage the technical aspects of the production, but also to share his time, care, and infinite patience. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, the Maplewood Nursing Home caregivers and staff who continue to provide loving care, understanding, and support for Pat. Thank you to the readers who selected poems and are reading them today. And thank you, Pat, for filling our lives with words we treasure and bringing your generosity of spirit into our world. Finally, thank you who are watching and listening for celebrating Patricia Fargnoli. Now for the order of things. There are 15 readers. Each reader begins by introducing himself or herself, takes a few minutes to talk, then reads one of Pat's poems. Tim Mayo will begin and end the readers section. Then Pat will read a few poems. Thank you again for coming. I love you, Pat. Tim Mayo, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I believe I met Pat at the beginning of 2008. Since then, she has become my best friend, not just helping me with my poetry, but like all friends do, helping me to navigate my life and to love and honor those people in it. 8 years ago, when my partner Amelia died, I asked Pat if I could read Duties of the Spirit at Amelia's memorial, a memorial which Amelia's family had asked that I conduct, and Pat not only consented, but came to the memorial to support me. For me, there's no doubt that Duties of the Spirit will stand the test of time and be considered a great poem. In the poem, there are 3 duties of the Spirit: joy, serenity, and grief. And of the 30 lines, 14 are dedicated to describing how grief comes to us and weighs us down. Another way to put it is almost half the poem struggles with grief, which is our need to honor what and whom we have lost and might be about to lose. Yet Pat's poem also reflects that part of her own spirit which is duty bound to find the counterbalance to grief, and that is joy. It's that counterbalance that also allows us to find that other duty of the spirit, serenity. This is a poem which could have only been written by somebody who has profoundly experienced great loss. And as such, it might speak more to readers who have also had a very deep loss in their lives than to those who haven't. For me, that might be the poem's only flaw. but you can't second guess the world. I'll read the epigram to the poem first. One of the duties of the spirit is joy, and another is serenity. And this was written by Thornton Wilder in a letter to Paul Stephenson in 1930. Duties of the spirit. If the first is joy, the rumba at sunrise, a 3-note whistle in the sugar maple, and the second is serenity, a chair by a quiet window, the adagio fading down the hill at sleep, then the third must be grief, rock tight, then loosening like scarves the wind takes across the ocean, while on the shore the shells' empty houses lie scattered. And if the first is in the brief seconds which are all we can keep of happiness, and if the second waits alone in the hour where the pond smooths out, its surface unbroken and the moon in it, then the third, which is grief, comes again and again, longer and more than we wanted or ever wished for, to wash us clean with its salt water, to empty our throats and fill them again with bloodroot song. And if the first duty of spirit is leaping joy, and the second, the slow stroll of serenity, then grief, the third, comes bending on his walking stick, holding a trowel to dig where the loves have gone. And he weighs down your shoulders, ties a rawhide necklace with a stone around your neck, and hangs on and on. But the first is slippery joy. Thank you.
I'm Lana Heckman Ayers. Patricia Fargnoli was the answer to a prayer I couldn't put into words. She believed in my poetry with such fierceness that I came to believe in it myself, thus installing me in a life fully engaged with the beauty and truth of language. Pat is not only a poet I revere and my poetry mentor, but she's become my dearest friend. I am so profoundly grateful for her words and her generous heart. Small prayer mosaic. The small prayer of the box. If I keep only darkness, you will need to search for cracks, for seams, for a door to open where there is no door, for light where there is no light. The small prayer of the small voice. Where will my voice go if you leave me? When will you return? Within the next hour? Inside the letter? In spite of the rain? The small prayer of the spoon. Lift me to your mouth that I may fill it with honey. The small prayer of the cat. Let my talons be held withdrawn, my sharp teeth unneeded for this brief hour. The small prayer of the door. Let me open, let them walk through me to the magic that is the garden. Let them walk where all that has happened can fall away and they can begin again. The small prayer of the red-tailed hawk. Free of the earth and the hungers of the earth. Let me spin above the fields. Let me rise in the thermals. Let me fall and rise, fall and rise. I love you, Pat. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Cleghorn, and I am reading a poem of Pat's as the voice of Tupelo Press. It has been our enormous pleasure and honor to publish 3 of Pat's books, Then Something, Hallowed, and Duties of the Spirit. I'm also speaking as the representative of my husband, Jeffrey Levin, the founder of Tupelo Press. And I want to tell you a very short story about how important Pat is to our family, to our home. For Hanukkah this year, Jeffrey and I decided to curate a poem for every night of Hanukkah. And of the 8 nights of Hanukkah, Pat's poems appeared twice. That's a very high proportion. And that's because we think of Pat as a poet of light, and as a poet of light who understands that light is the place where place meets spirit. So whenever I need a poem of light, I turn to Pat. So today I'm going to read Watching the Light in the Field, which was our 2nd night of Hanukkah poem. It may be part water, part animal, the light, the long flowing whole of it, river-like, almost feline, shredding night, moving silent and inscrutable into the early morning, drifting into the low fields, gathering fullness, attaching itself to thistle and sweetgrass, the towering border trees, inheriting their green wealth, blooming as if this were the only rightful occupation, rising beyond itself, stretching out to inhabit the whole landscape. I think of illuminations, erasures, how light informs us, is enough to guide us, how too much can cause blindness. I think of memory, what is lost to us, what we desire. By noon, nothing is exact, everything diffused in the glare. What cannot be seen intensifies, rivulet of sweat across the cheekbone, earthworm odor of soil and growing. The field sways with confusion of bird call, mewlings, soft, indecipherable mumblings. But in the late afternoon, each stalk and blade stands out so sharp and clear, I begin to know my place among them. By sunset, as it leaves, gold dusting the meadow rue and hoary asylum. By sunset, as it leaves, gold dusting the meadow rue and hoary alyssum, hauling its bronze cloak across the fences, vaulting the triple circumference of hills, I am no longer lonely. Thank you so much, Pat. We love you. From me and Jeffrey in Tupelo.
I think I'm on there now. Hi, Pat. It's nice to see you finally. We've never met in person before, but as you know, we've shared hundreds of messages over the last 7 years, I guess. And I would like to read tonight just one small poem from the Pemaquid Variations. I'm reading this because it was the first poem that I read of yours that brought me to you. And since we've had such a wonderful relationship, and it's hard to say, you've done so much for my life as well as my poetry, and I want to thank you so much for that. And what brought me to your poetry was particularly the authenticity, I would say, of the poems, and something that's really coming from the heart. So this one is entitled Nocturne, number 13. Soft, 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 soft now, the combers come in, and the moon's bin of platinum pours over the bay and the hard sand beneath me, walking at tide line, and the sound of the water, sweet, life-filled salt water, where the seaweeds are drifting, rocking and rocking the night, wraps around me, close as a blanket, but stretching to everywhere, and soft, 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 soft. The waves come in, 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 in. Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi there. Hi. How are
Hi.
you? Hi. You hear you, Ken. Okay, good. All right, hi, I'm Ken. I am Pat's son. I've known her probably a little longer than any of you. I've known her 63 years, since I was 63 years ago. The only thing I wanted to mention about my mother, obviously I'm very, very proud of her today, and proud of all the respect she gets within the poetry world. I think all of you should understand that all her poetry didn't come without cost. I mean, Pat had to give up a lot. My mother had to give up a lot to concentrate on poetry. I mean, she moved 2 hours away from her family, from her kids, from her grandkids, and because Connecticut wasn't the right place for her to be able to pursue this. So it's obviously I understand that, and it was very, very important to her. But I think all her poetry friends should understand that she's suffered quite a bit to bring this poetry to you. I'm reading On the Question of the Soul. It is not iron, nor does it have anything to do with the fleshy heart. It does not quiver like feathers, nor the arrow shot from the hunter's bow is not the deer that runs or falls in the snow. It hunkers down in the invisible recesses of the body, its closets, scrolled bureaus, the ivory hardness of the chest, or disperses through every cell, and also it flies out beyond the body. Someday watch smoke travel through the air. Someday watch a stain spread out to no stain in the ocean. The soul does that. It doesn't care whether or not you believe in it. It's unstable and contradictory. The dog that comes barking and wagging its tail. It is not, I am certain, biology.
not a cardinal or a heron, not even a thrush or wren, but it might be a praying mantis. It is the no color of rain as it sweeps a field on an August morning full of fences and field flowers. It is the shifting of light across the surface of any lake, the shadows that move like muskrats across a mountain whose shape mimics the clouds above it, weighed down by the vested interests of the body, it nevertheless bears us forward. Thank you.
So hi, I'm Ann Fisher-Wirth. And Pat, what an amazing poet you are. Listening to these poems again, it's just so beautiful. You know that already. You know that I think that too. I've known you for 15 years. We've been in the WAMPO workshop together. So I bring a message from everybody in this workshop about how much we love you and how much we all feel lucky to have seen your poems come into existence over the years. I only ever met Pat once, but I feel like I know you well because we've been present at the birth of so many of each other's poems and books. I remember this poem, the one I want to read, so well when it came into existence. It's one of my favorites. To an old woman standing in October light. Better to just admit it. Time has gotten away from you. And yet here you are again, out in your yard at sunset, a golden light draping itself across the white houses and mowed lawns. House tall maple, green and rust in ordinary light, has become a golden leaf embossed globe. The brook runs molten. The clouds themselves glow gold as the heaven you used to imagine. Do you know that your own figure, as Midas touched as a Klimt painting, has become part of that landscape falling around you, almost indistinguishable from the whole of it, as if eternity itself were being absorbed into your mortal body? Or is it that your body, out of time, is merged into eternity? You've been looking for a reason for your continued existence with faith so shaky it vibrates like a plucked wire. Such moments of glory must be enough. As you search them out again, your disappearing holds off for a while. To see how even in this present, as you stand there, the past flies into the future. The way above you, the crows are winging home again, calling to each other, vanishing above the trees into the night gathering sky. So Pat, I'm sending you much love and many blessings.
I'm Gildner-Blinn. Hi, Pat. It's true. I was looking for a poetry workshop and somebody mentioned Pat's, and wanting to know what kind of a poet she was, I found her first book, Necessary Light. It's right here. And I read this poem. Pat has been a mentor and a friend ever since. Lightning spreads out across the water. It was already too late when the swimmers began to wade through the heavy water toward shore. The cloud's black greatcoat flinging across the sun, forked bolts blitzing the blind ground. Splits and cracks going their own easiest way, and with them the woman in the purple tank suit, the boy with the water wings. One body, then another. And this is nothing about God, but how Stone Pond turned at the height of the day to flashpoint and fire stalking across the water, climbing the beach among the screens and the odor of burned skin, until 12 of them curled lifeless on sand or floated on the tipped white caps of the surface, and 22 more walked into the rest of their lives, knowing what waits in the clouds to claim them is random, that nothing can stop it, that afterwards the pond smooths to a stillness that gives back, as though nothing could move it, the vacant, imponderable sky. Thank you, Pat. I miss you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Meg Kearney, and I want to extend an especially warm hello to my dear friend, Pat. It's an honor to be among these wonderful poets paying tribute to you and your work today.
No. I have no idea.
One second. While preparing for this reading, I was trying to remember when I first met you, Pat. You signed my copy of Duties of the Spirit in 2006, but our first introduction goes back farther. I know that because Duties of the Spirit includes your poem titled First Night at the Frost Place, which features a bat hovering in the rafters over a dinner table. And I happen to have shared that meal with you and Don Sheehan and the dozen or so others who were there that night. Who could forget that? My guess is that that evening in Franconia was in the late 90s. Then, of course, we got to know each other during the poetry readings at Del Rossi's these last 13 years, all times that I really treasure. And I give thanks to Roger Martin for those readings that made that possible. Whenever it was that we first met, I know that I felt a true connection to your poems and thus to you when I first encountered them. Your relationship with the natural world borders on the magical, and your ability to render that on the page is your sacred and sublime gift to us all. Thank you for that, Pat, and for you and your friendship. It's my great pleasure now to read your poem titled When Too Much Has Happened, which certainly speaks to all of us today. And this is from Duties of the Spirit. If too much has happened, even the rain speaks in syllables that can't be found in our language. And so do the crows, loud on the high, slim branches, as if testing the sky. And so do the stones that fall down the shale cliffs, rattling their hard tongues. Have you ever noticed how empty spaces are filled with thought? The way, for example, everything that has ever happened in a house fills the rooms of that house. In my old house on Deerfield Road, the outline of a French revolutionary captain could be seen in the cracks of my bedroom ceiling. And beside him, a child, no older than I was, also held there in the plaster for who knows how long, her hair falling around her shoulders. I'd lie awake for hours through the long summer twilights, imagining their lives in that house, the sadness for which I had no words and no other listeners. Who could say they didn't answer? Their response in the tambourine of rain on the tin porch roof beyond my window, or in the code of car lights moving across the walls. When my parents died, the aunts pretended nothing had happened. What could not be spoken was held in the muscles and flesh of my body. And you, too, have your sorrow that can find no expression. What cannot be expressed hangs thinner than dust and as ubiquitous in the shafts of sun that travel silently and from a great distance. Thank you, Pat. I love you.
Oh, these poems. I am Carol Levin. I live in Seattle. I live on the bluff above, overlooking Puget Sound, a large marina, an island, and the Olympic Mountains. Somewhere around the early 1995, I was looking for a tutor, mentor, and on AOL, I found a list of mentors possible to hire. I didn't know any of them. My son's name is Ari, A-R-I. Pat's email, which was on that list, starts with A-R-I. So, of course, I chose her, and then she chose me, changing my life. Pat, you taught me and guided supporting my poetry by, we only did it by snail mail and email, evolving into our friendship over these years. And it was years before I even heard your speaking voice, your New England accent, and I was startled. I had called you to congratulate you on a book published. In 2003, I went with 2 other poets to New Hampshire for a week to study with you. Oh, what a week it was. You just took us everywhere. You taught us everything. And then later, you came to Seattle on 2 occasions, and you slept on our bluff overlooking the Sound. Pat, your generosity and embracing care, friendship, love, of course, has supported and enriched my life truly in all aspects. And I still have a huge file of all the years you were sending me critiques, and I still read them and I'm still learning. And even with that, Pat, I have no words to thank you. I'm reading Crossing the Sound from Necessary Light. Far into the silver, the rolling hum carries me. Top deck of the ferry, at the back rail, I watch herring gulls ride updrafts, collapse on bread chunks. They whiten the gray with their
noisy hungers. Below in the great room, others doze, place set back, queuing up for coffee. Leashed to a chair leg, a terrier starts yapping. I am one of them. No, I am not one of them. Know that beneath the waves, patina, the unseen slides by in silvery shadows. I understand hunger. Why the shearwater grazes the whitecaps. I know that behind me stretches shining a road I can't follow. The rail I lean on beads with silver. My breath is mist, warm and heavy with brine. Silver everywhere, evening on the rim. Nearing New London Harbor, I feel boundaries dissolve. And I'm the 100 tiny bells the halyards clink on the sailboats at rest. By the time night drops down its dull foil sheets, by the time I enter the mouth of the river, I am ocean, sky, gullbone, and light. I am salt. I am sea smoke.
Kyle, before I play the video, I wanted to offer you and Gabriel a chance to say a few words if you want.
Thank you, Bob. Gabriel Parker and I both named the same poem for as one of our favorites of Pat's. So we decided to collaborate, and Gabriel produced the beautiful video that you're about to see. I read her poem. Pat, we offer you this with our love, our admiration, and our gratitude.
Gabriel, would you like to say anything?
I just want to say I love you, Pat, and I hope you enjoy the video. I met Pat at Del Rossi's years ago, and she's been a wonderful friend many years. Love you.
Should the fox come again to my cabin in the snow, then the winter will have fallen all in white, and the hill will be rising to the north, the night also rising and leaving, dawn light just coming in, the fire out. Down the hill running will come that flame among the dancing skeletons of the ash trees. I will leave the door open for him.
I'm Susan Roney O'Brien, as you know, and I've known Pat ever since she came to New Hampshire from Connecticut. One of the things I love about her work is that it connects us all, and it connects us to nature as well. And I'm reading what is probably a very old poem, and it's from a chapbook called Lives of Others. And this is Lives of Others. They brush up against me, walking so close, their shadows cover me before they slide by and disappear. The way deer on the island leave the field when I surprise them, though they can't go far. Between us, an old light shimmers like mountain peak ice seen at a distance. How important they are to me, the other lives, vital as air, lustrous and full of histories, each one beginning and ending alone, but spreading colors into the earth that holds our footsteps in patterns, an interlace of closeness and distance, as if we were cells in the same body, our blood running the same vessels. Isn't it odd how sometimes the most ordinary face coming toward me down the street, loud with people, seems beautiful? How often there's a shine of recognition, the slightest smile, for instance, or eyes that suddenly fasten on mine. In those few seconds, I am bound to that stranger. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patricia Riz. I met Pat Fargnoli 40 years ago in a poetry writing seminar taught by Brendan Galvin at then Central Connecticut State College. After class dinners evolved into a poetry workshop, the Wood Thrush Poets, which continues to meet monthly to this day, 40 years later. We are joined today by the members of the Wood Thrush Poets. In addition to Pat and me, Pitt Pinniger, Carol Stasiowski, Polly Brody, Susan King, Jerry Radacy, and Jean Tupper. You have heard Pat's exquisite poetry today, its lyricism, the sheer beauty of its language, the excellence of its craft, her strong connection to the natural world, and the deep spirituality of her subject matter. I chose to read her poem, Location, narrative and humorous, to show and honor Pat's great sense of humor. I laugh every time I read the poem. It is my great honor today to be a part of this reading for Pat Fargnoli, my friend, fellow motherless child, and soul sister. Location. Robin Williams, they say, has checked out, moved on. But here, at the tag end of this small town's week-long big deal, here on blocked off Main Street, here among the watching starstruck crowd, the trailers of TriStar Pictures are still lined up curbside and humming. The cameramen are still angling for shots. And I, unstarstruck at the moment and pleased with my new curly cut, am only trying to walk home from the main salon when I find myself up against a barricade, the cop struggling to hold spectators back. But nothing's been happening for minutes, only the heaped up leaves littering Central Square, blowing around the painted to look rundown gazebo, the cannon, its fake rust. So I ask the cop, can I cross? He says, if I go now, I can. I squeeze through and stroll out in my fleecy brown jacket, my wicked good hairdo. Suddenly, a loudspeaker, voice from everywhere, nowhere, fills the sky, booming. You, the lady in the brown jacket, the lady in the brown jacket. 1,000 eyes turn. I freeze, mid-street, 50, overweight, scarlet, not knowing, forward, back, and everyone, the cameras that are about to roll, the lighting wizards, the prop people, the stunt man driving the gray Toyota wagon that's about to careen across the square, the kid that's about to dash across in front of it, the ambulance that's about to in just 1 second, tear screaming down Court Street, the extras that are looters, the ones that are the itchy, scratchy homeless, the ones that are about to run away from the wild animals, everyone, the hundreds huddled in the cold, waiting for something to happen. The whole world that's about to be born stops dead in its tracks for me. Thank you. Love you, Pat.
Hi, I'm Penelope Schott. I first met Pat at a workshop at Ann Silsby's house many, many years ago. And I think we had that workshop, I don't know, 3 times or something. And I, in recent years, have visited Pat maybe once a year when I get back to the East Coast to visit my son. And we've had lovely lunches. The last time, which of course was before COVID, etc., I made my husband come with me, and he said, well, you know, why do you want me? You two are poets. What do you want me for? And afterwards he said he was so glad that he had met you, Pat. So I just wanted to tell you that. Anyway, the poem that I picked is called Lately. Sometimes at night I venture out into the roiling universe, just stand on the front lawn, head bent back, imagine myself out to those far edges. What redeems terror but beauty? Death keeps trying to collect. The brain's old steam train chugs into obsolescence. I think of Hubble photographs, whole galaxy swirling, until we down here seem miniature, as insignificant as toy soldiers among quilt hills and valleys. How strange these inflations of ourselves we make and hold on to when all around us the night is falling down. So thank you, Pat, and also my condolences for your cat, Rusty. Lots of love. Bye.
Pat, hi, I love you and I miss you. I guess you and I first met probably right after I moved here from New York with my husband. And I had moved from a lively academic, cultural, artistic community. And you were one of the first solaces that I found here in Vermont. As much as I wanted to be here, I also missed New York terribly. And I forget exactly how I came upon your poetry, but I know that I heard you read at the Walpole Library, and you welcomed my friendship and my appreciation for your poetry. Over the years, we've had a couple of lunches at Burdick's, and I visited with you, and this past year we've spent more time together, and I'm very grateful to have had that time with you. One of the things I think that we have in common, Pat, you're a woman of appetites and you love your good food. And we shared that at Burdick's and also in your apartment several times. And your poetry is so important to me because it is so rooted in the material world and in the power of a single image. And of course, the natural world, as others have talked about. But you always take flight. Every poem always takes flight from the materiality. But you come back to it too, which I think is so important. So you will forever be one of my favorite poets. I miss you, I love you. I am very grateful for your friendship. And I'm going to read Shadow at Evening, which is from the volume Winter. After all day walking the Vermont Craft Fair in the sun, after the goat milk soaps and rose-scented sachets, the bright pottery stalls and the wooden animals, while my shadow preceded me along the grassy aisles and disappeared, reappeared as I moved in and out of the shadows of maples and gray ash trees, where the breathy music of the accordion player floated, where the field was vibrant with color and motion, stalls of candles, relishes and pickles, cotton candy in plastic sleeves. I drove home and my shadow rode beside me, drove lazily, watching the green mountains pass outside the windows. Home to my own small catch of solitude and grace. Then my shadow disappeared into the brown carpet, disappeared into the bookshelves and the books. I never missed it, but just continued on with my quiet life. But now through the east window, evening approaches, but now night is knocking against the long shadows of the street lamp as my shadow rises mysterious and compliant. And I beckon it to enter me until I am one with it at last. And I allow the day to close and dream to come. Allow the dream to rise from nowhere and come to me. Love you, Pat.
This is Tim Mayo again, and I guess we're getting to the end of this. Because of Pat's concern that her voice and eyesight wouldn't hold up, she asked me to read Duties of the Spirit a second time to bookend this reading. After I'm finished, Pat is going to say a few words and read two last poems. Duties of the Spirit. If the first is joy, the rumba at sunrise, a three-note whistle in the sugar maple, and the second is serenity, a chair by a quiet window, the adagio fading down the hill at sleep. Then the third must be grief, rock tight, then loosening like scarves the wind takes across the ocean, while on the shore the shells' empty houses lie scattered. And if the first is in the brief seconds which are all we can keep of happiness, and if the second waits alone in the hour where the pond smooths out its surface unbroken and the moon in it, then the third, which is grief, comes again and again, longer and more than we wanted or ever wished for, to wash us clean with its salt water, to empty our throats and fill them again with bloodroot song. And if the first duty of the Spirit is leaping joy, and the second, the slow stroll of serenity, then grief, the third, comes bending on his walking stick, holding a trowel to dig where the loves have gone. And he weighs down your shoulders, ties a rawhide necklace hung with a stone around your neck, and hangs on and on. But the first is slippery joy.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm not sure what to say. You all break my heart. I want to especially thank a few people, and actually it's more than a few. And then I'll read you two short final poems. A special thanks, a special huge thanks to Susan Ronnie O'Brien for organizing this and having all these people I love come together in honor of my work and our friendship. And thanks to Bob Gill for doing all the technical work and making this such a perfect gathering. I also want to thank the Worcester County Poetry Association, Tim Mayo, who did a lot of the organizing work and getting people in touch with people and bringing them here, and who's one of my very best friends, along with Susan and so many others. I want to thank my son for coming. So many years that I've felt that my kids didn't understand my work and why I'm here and why I'm not in Connecticut. And to hear Ken talk about that today really is moving to me. I want to thank Maplewood Nursing Home. I sure didn't want to come here. It was an extremely hard decision. But they've been wonderful and supportive and done everything they can to make me comfortable. And they did so much to support this reading and to say that they'd be here to help support me anyway. I want to thank all of my family, my Facebook friends, the New Hampshire Poetry Societies that have been such a big part of my being here and being able to exist as a poet here. All my poetry people, especially the wood thrush poets, who were a major support and influence and friendship group this my whole life. Also my online poetry group with the one with Ann Fisher-Wirth is in, and Penelope Scott was in. I think it's really almost impossible, or it is for me anyway, impossible to exist as a poet in a vacuum today. I know some people do it, but for me, the poetry community has been all important. So thank you all. Reincarnate. I want to come back as that ordinary garden snail, carting one brown striped spiral. I'm having trouble with my eyes, they're blurring. Carting my brown striped spiral shell onto the mushroom, which has sprouted overnight rain, so I can stretch my tentacles toward the slightly drooping and pimpled raspberry, sweet and pulsing, a thumb that bends on the stalk from the crown of small leaves, weighed down by the almost translucent shining drop of dew I have been reaching and reaching toward my whole life. And finally, thanks to Jonathan Blake, who I've never met, who's been sending me poems ever since I've been here, in here. And he one day sent a poem that I had written and was looking for to read today and couldn't find because it wasn't in any of the books that I had. And then suddenly, in one of his notes, he sent me the poem, and I call this a small miracle. Someone taught me that, to look for the small miracles in life, and this is one of the small miracles. And it's the final poem, and it's called Coda. A woman walked away from the let me start again. A woman walked away from the winter village, became sand, became ocean, became sky. Thank you.
Well, I would love to thank everyone for coming, and I know Pat is equally happy to have seen all your faces. I am so glad that Pat and all of us could celebrate together. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And just, a last word, everyone is wonderful. And I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful to have had this experience for myself, and to have these moments with all of you. So thank you, and keep being together.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us today. Have a wonderful afternoon, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.